In a world that glorifies hustle, noise, and constant motion, doing nothing feels like failure. We're told that if we're not producing, posting, or progressing, we're falling behind. But what if that's a lie? What if doing nothing isn't laziness but a hidden psychological necessity? What if the moments we label as unproductive are actually the times when the brain does its most important work? Most people fear stillness because they misunderstand it. We've been conditioned to associate silence with emptiness and rest with waste. But from a psychological and neurological standpoint, doing nothing is far from idle. It's one of the brain's most active and creative states. It's the invisible engine behind clarity, emotion, and insight. When you stop forcing yourself to act, when you pause, unplug, and just exist, something remarkable happens inside your mind. Your brain switches from its task-positive network to its default mode network, the system responsible for introspection, memory, and meaning-making. This is when your mind starts connecting dots, revisiting experiences, and creating the stories that make sense of your life. It's the brain's way of cleaning house, reorganizing scattered thoughts into understanding. That's why so many breakthroughs happen in the shower, on a walk, or in those quiet, seemingly useless moments. You're not doing nothing. You're allowing your subconscious to breathe. You're giving your brain space to process the noise of life, something it simply can't do while you're constantly performing for it. The truth is, doing nothing is one of the most productive things you can do because it's when your inner world finally catches up to your outer one. Psychologically, this state of rest allows your nervous system to leave fight-or-flight mode and enter rest and digest, the calm, healing rhythm your body needs to recover. When you slow down, your brain lowers cortisol, your stress hormone. Creativity rises. Emotional clarity returns. You begin to see what actually matters and what was just mental clutter. But there's a reason. People resist stillness. It's not just impatience. It's fear. When the noise stops, your thoughts get louder. The parts of yourself you've ignored start to speak. The guilt, the sadness, the emptiness, they all rise to the surface. That's why most people fill their lives with distractions. They scroll, binge, overwork, and overthink. Not because they're truly busy, but because silence forces them to feel. Doing nothing feels uncomfortable because it strips away every illusion of control. Yet this discomfort is where transformation begins. When you sit with stillness, instead of running from it, begin to notice what's really going on beneath the surface. The emotional patterns, the unmet needs, the suppressed dreams. You realize that most of your restlessness wasn't a lack of progress, it was a lack of presence. Psychologists call this process self-referential processing, when your mind turns inward to examine its own state. It's how you develop self-awareness. And self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. You can't grow if you don't understand yourself. And you can't understand yourself if you never slow down long enough to listen. The irony is, the harder you push yourself to be productive, the more your brain resists. Constant busyness keeps your nervous system in overdrive, flooding you with adrenaline and stress. Over time, this dulls your emotional sensitivity and creativity. You start to feel detached, not because you're lazy, but because your brain is exhausted. Doing nothing is not just rest. It's a neurological reset. This is why some of the most intelligent, creative, and grounded people in history valued idleness. They understood that doing nothing was not an escape from life. It was returning to it. Thinkers like Nietzsche, Einstein, and Da Vinci all had long periods of solitude and reflection. They knew that when the body is still, the mind can roam freely. And it's in that freedom that ideas, perspective, healing emerge. But modern culture has flipped that wisdom upside down. We've made doing nothing something to be ashamed of, a sign of weakness. Social media glorifies grind culture, as if exhaustion were a badge of honor. People now equate busyness with worth. "I'm so busy" has become code for "I am important." But underneath that phrase is often anxiety, the fear that if we stop, we'll lose relevance. Here's the truth. You don't need to earn your right to rest. You don't need to justify stillness. Doing nothing is not the absence of meaning. It's where meaning begins. When you stop performing for the world, You give your inner world a chance to speak. You discover who you are when you're not trying to be anything, doing nothing. This also has a profound emotional benefit. It restores your sense of self. When you're constantly reacting to notifications, to deadlines, to other people's opinions, your identity gets scattered. But when you pause, when you let stillness settle in, all those pieces start to realign. You remember what you value. You rediscover what you actually feel, not just what you've been told to feel. And here's the hidden beauty of it. When you finally learn to do nothing, you start doing everything differently. You make better decisions because they're not rushed. You communicate with more clarity because you've processed your thoughts. You connect with others more deeply because you've first connected with yourself. Doing nothing becomes the foundation for doing everything with purpose. In psychology, this is known as mental restoration. It's why meditation, daydreaming, and rest aren't luxuries. They're necessities. The mind needs space to wander in order to grow. Without that wandering, you're just repeating patterns. You're moving, but not evolving. So, the next time you feel guilty for taking a break, for sitting quietly, staring out the window, or doing absolutely nothing, remind yourself, this is not wasted time. This is sacred time. It's your brain recalibrating. It's your nervous system finding balance. It's your soul catching its breath. And when you come out of that stillness, you'll notice something subtle but profound. Life feels lighter. Decisions feel clearer. The noise doesn't control you anymore. Because the truth is, you never needed more action. You needed more awareness. And awareness only comes when you stop long enough to hear it whisper. If this message spoke to you, if it reminded you that stillness isn't weakness but wisdom, consider subscribing to Psyche Edge. Here, we explore the unseen forces of the human mind, the behaviors, emotions, and inner patterns that shape how we live. Think and heal. Stay curious, slow down, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all.